Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. No sigh, we have a victory. A victory to talk about. How fantastic. And loads of other interesting stuff as well. That's just reminded me, I was in Tesco's the other day and a very nice chap, Spurs fan, and his son came over to talk about stuff and Spurs and the videos and the podcast and everything. And he just on the spot asked me, do the sigh. And no one's ever asked me to do that, just on the spot. And I found it very difficult. I found it very difficult to sigh on demand. It's really only Tottenham that actually makes me sigh pretty much in life right now, which I guess is fortunate if it's only Spurs doing that. But yeah, I found it really difficult. It was like, yeah, it was like really awkward. So I apologise to that gentleman. It was a very awkward response from me. But anyway, back to Tottenham Hotspur, and they got through it. We got a victory. Third time they've beaten Man United this season, which is the first time anyone's done that to United since Chelsea. I've got the date somewhere down here. So somewhere like 2012, 2013, something like that. Very strange. They've had this thing over the Manchester clubs, which hopefully continues in a couple of weeks' time. But a win. A pretty much not the greatest game of football you'll ever see, but this was a day that was all about the end result. Let's be honest, whether that be for Ange Postecoglou, whether that be for Tottenham, whether that be for the protesting Spurs fans ahead of the match, because that was a big thing as well yesterday. There'd been somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000, we reckon, fans, Spurs supporters, marched down the high road. I think they started roughly where the Sports Direct is, down the high road, and worked their way up, all the way up to essentially the West Stand entrance at the side on the High Street, and making their feelings very clear towards Chairman Daniel Levy, the board, the owners, ENIC, everything. And it was a really striking image, the whole thing. To have these thousands, it's very difficult to kind of count, but I deliberately kind of came out and went up some steps near the West Stand to look down on it to try and get a better scope of the scale of it all. And that was what we think, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000. But it was, everyone saw it because it was on that scale. You had all of us media were writing stuff, videos, everything, social media, there were videos, Sky Sports, of course, covering the game. They captured it all and their pundits discussed it after the game as well. It was probably the most successful protest I've seen at Tottenham, certainly in recent years. And I think why it was so successful probably was in gaining traction this time was twofold. One was organisation and the other I think was inclusion. Previous attempts, we've seen them, we've spoken about them in these videos that they were kind of probably coming, and they just haven't quite come off to this degree. There's been a kind of a hardy bunch of maybe 200, 300, I think, at one of them, which in itself is still impressive to get that many people organised, but just, I don't know, maybe there was something about just not being at the right time, the right place, the right moment, whatever it was. It didn't quite catch on at this scale. The stuff, and we've spoken about this before, so this is nothing new, but maybe at times previously there's been this almost kind of angry, nearly aggressive kind of, you're either with us or against us, kind of them and us mentality about some of these kind of things. I mean, I'm talking social media here, and I do think that doesn't help create a snowball. It doesn't include other people and make people want to be associated with that. And I think that's what changed for Tottenham, or changed for Spurs are also called on Twitter, or X, sorry, did such a great job in terms of the organisation this time that they kind of came on board and they really took it and ran with it, and it became a much more inclusive idea, because people can differ over, people can agree that they want change, but they might differ in exactly how that comes, how, things that have gone wrong in the past, whether the blame lies in certain decisions that Levy or the board have made. There might be different elements to it. But ultimately, there's this shared view that change is needed among these supporters. And I think this way it was much more inclusive. It wasn't, my view is the only way, yours is wrong. And I think that was really important. The way that it was all dealt with In the build-up, there was less kind of anger and aggression about it and more let's do something about it. And I think that made such a huge difference as well, because there is this shared view among those that were walking, that, marching, that essentially, I guess it's the idea of one person being in charge for so long, a quarter of a century. Daniel Levy's often called himself a custodian of the football club. Is that a healthy way to operate, to have someone in charge for so long? And that's, I guess, is the crux of the protest and everything. I mean, we look at the world in general, and often in kind of certainly organisations to a degree, but things like, even on a bigger scale, like I guess the presidency in America, you have a fixed term for a reason, that someone can bring in fresh ideas every so often and things like that. It's not always to say that the next person is better or worse. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse. But, it's the idea of is it a healthy way to operate, just to have one sole view on things from above? And yeah, I guess it was kind of fitting that the march itself ended outside the west stand of the stadium that, was the house that Daniel Levy built. We've kind of called it that before, and the stadium was predicted to be a game changer for Tottenham and for Levy, I think, in his whole tenure. However, we've seen these huge revenues that it is bringing in. 500 million was topped in the last set of financial results. But yet, we've all seen that table where Spurs sit rock bottom of the wages to revenue percentage. And there's running a tight ship, and there's running a huge ship with a very tiny engine, which means it can't really chug along very quickly. And I guess this is what it was all about as well. And the other thing I thought Change for Tottenham did really well was the clear delineation on the day between the protest before and after the game. I think we spoke about this in the last video. The one after, the fans were kind of gathering. There were a couple opposite us in the East Stand we could see with a banner, but also were maybe 200, 300 maybe in the South Stand that were meant to gather afterwards. And they did. The difficulty was, if I'm going to be fair to Spurs on this occasion, normally I always kind of pick out the fact that they bash music out really loudly when there's going to be any kind of discord in the terraces or the stands. But this time, whenever they win a game, to be fair, the music is on. It is normally on. But I did feel sorry for those trying to have their protest, because their chants were kind of drowned out. They were. But I think the key thing really was that they gave everything during the match towards supporting the team. And if they hadn't, we've seen it. We've seen some pretty toxic, angry atmospheres within that stadium before. And it ultimately has no benefit to those on the pitch whatsoever. I understand the frustrations behind it and what the idea of it is, but ultimately in terms of supporting the football team on the pitch, it doesn't do much for them. So I thought that was great from the organisers to really make it a clear thing, like we're not going to do it during the game. There are a couple of early Levy chants, but on the whole, it was about supporting the team and everything else was around it. I think that was huge. It was 61,383 people inside the stadium in terms of the crowd. And the bulk of that was going towards pushing the team on. Because let's be honest, the message was the march. It was brilliant. It was a really striking visual thing in that respect. And I would imagine it's not the last time we'll see it as well. I don't think it'll be something we see all the time, because I think you lessen the impact then. And I don't think maybe nighttime games like the Man City ones but we might see home games coming up maybe where it returns and it's a thing again. But ultimately, the message was there, and I think people got their message across in a really, I think, impressively organised way was the best way to describe it. There was one moment which was an interesting moment. There was one point during the protest, just as the march was getting towards halfway between the shop and the main entrance to the West Stand, and this one man stood in front of them all with a little sign holding it up that said "Levy in." It's a brave man. It's a brave man that does that. He had a big grin on his face. So I don't know whether he truly believed it or whether it was a provocational thing. I don't know. But ultimately, he did it. And, he was getting boos from those who were marching towards him, which is, understandable from for what they're trying to do, to have someone in direct opposition. But then someone, you couldn't really see the videos I saw and the photos, you couldn't really see the person's face, but you just saw someone run from the side of the crowd and rip this little sign out of the person's hand and kind of throw it to the floor in pieces, which I get as frustrations at having an opposing view there, but also doing that kind of somewhat was undoing the whole point of the day, of being able to protest. It's kind of, if you're allowed to protest one thing, so should someone else be able to as well. I kind of felt like that was a little lack of understanding of the bigger picture and exactly what's happening there. Because obviously, had that guy with the one sign gone across and was ripping down banners, ripping down whatever everyone else was doing, there'd have been uproar about it, and rightly so. And I did feel that was a little bit of a, don't know, maybe letting someone's emotions get the better of them. Maybe, I don't know. But it was a very small moment. I think the main protest itself left its mark. This was just a weird little thing that kind of happened in the middle of it. And it provoked discussion on a wider scale, and that is the aim of a protest. Absolutely, is to get people talking about it, and it did. So yeah, absolutely. Regardless of, and I've seen this is kind of the pervading view, I think, of people I've seen talking about it, or certainly a lot of views, is regardless of what do you think of the protest, what you think of the ideas behind it, the organisation of it and the execution of it were really well done. And there was no aggression. There was, from what I understand, there was no issues. I haven't heard of any other than that, little moment there. And certainly that wasn't something that caused any major problems. There were a lot of police around it as well. I definitely noticed an increase in the police presence when I turned up at the stadium. They were all kind of ready, just in case, I think. It's also a big game, so they're going to be there for that. But I heard some people suggesting, was it actually that many in the march, or were people just slowly walking towards the game? I don't think so. I can understand why you'd think that, but I don't think so, because looking at it, it was very clearly the march had gathered at a certain place. There were police, I think horses behind it, kind of cutting off the march itself, so it was contained. So I don't think so. But yeah. I asked Postecoglou after the game what he'd made of the protest, but also the fact that clearly within the game itself, the fans were behind the team. And he said, well, I mean, obviously I wasn't outside, so I can't comment on that, but I thought the fans were great today in the stadium. I thought they got behind the team and it was important. It was an important game for us, considering the build-up for the week and how we had an opportunity just to have a breather and kind of assess things, and also allow us to work with the players leading into it. All the fans contributed to us getting the result we needed. So on the game itself, it was just such a different matchday squad. It was weird as a reporter. My predicted team has been so easy pretty much before the games, other than one or two decisions. You know what team's pretty much going to play. Whereas now, there's been so many new additions to training. New returning additions. It feels like new additions. 5 players had come back into training in the last week or so. It was only Timo Werner who didn't actually feature in the game itself. Guillermo Vicario and James Maddison obviously both started. They brought their leadership to the team, which was hugely needed. But then you also had Brennan Johnson and Wilson Odobert coming off the bench in the game, which was great. I think I had a suspicion that Brennan Johnson might be involved. And I think, actually, to be fair, Postecoglou then in his press conference suggested that as well, that he might be. Odobert, it's great that he's back. I think a lot of us thought they were going to be a lot more cautious with him. And I think they still will in terms of starting games. But to see him get minutes must have been huge for him. So kind of morale booster for him. But just looking at the bench already someone had to get left off it in terms of a senior player, Sergio Reguilon. And that just shows you how different it's been, where we've had these games where there was all these academy youngsters on there. Great experience for them, but let's be honest, probably were never going to come onto the pitch because Postecoglou just didn't want to throw them into such a difficult situation. Whereas this time, strong bench, he can bring on 5 senior players. How many times have we spoken about this being a big thing at Celtic and his previous clubs, where he wants to build a squad where he can bring on, now 5 subs you're allowed nowadays, to completely transform half of the outfield players. And, Spurs' big thing is their pressing. It really is in the Postecoglou system. And we got to see that again in the first half. But now in the situation, if you've got everyone fit, that he can replace. He can bring on Odegaard and Johnson towards the end of a game, and suddenly those fullbacks or centre backs that thought, oh, maybe we're going to get a little bit of a rest now, they're under pressure again because the Spurs attackers are still flying at them with fresh legs trying to press them. There were so many occasions United got past the initial press, but then made a mistake and gave the ball away to the midfield of Spurs, and you could just see the difference. It's I'm going to use the word huge again, but it is. It's such a key foundation of the Postecoglou system, the pressing, and you really notice how different it is when it's not able to be used because the players just haven't got the energy to do it. And I asked him about that, being able to bring on 5 players, not seeing the quality dip, and he said it makes a huge difference. Massive difference. I'm adding huge into his. I don't know why I got huge on the brain today. A massive difference. Getting guys like Vic and Madders contributing straight away, you can see the quality they have and the presence they have. As you said, I can put guys on, and for guys like Brennan and Wilson, Vic, Madders to a certain extent, it might take them 1 or 2 games to get up to speed, but the fact we have them available, it's an enormous boost for us. His belief now is that other teams are going to start going through these injury problems because of an accumulation of fatigue and things like that. And Spurs, in his hope, is that Spurs will have come through their period. And because so many of those players have had such little in terms of game time, they'll actually be fresher for Spurs for the second part of the season or the final stages of the season. Hopefully it works that way. That'd be brilliant. It's Tottenham, so they'll probably have another 10 injuries come out the woodwork. But, you can see Ruben Amorim, United were going through something quite similar to what Spurs have had in the longer term. I think his bench maybe only had 1 player in Lindelof that actually played a Premier League game. I think, perhaps, outfield player anyway. Guesty was telling me something about even minutes for United. I think Lindelof had all but 20 minutes or something like that of the amount of experience on that bench. And it's funny because the difference is when United have injury problems, don't we all know about it? Everyone's told about it. When Spurs have them, it's an excuse. And do stop going on about it. I think it's quite funny the way it works. And he was asked after the game, he's been asked this before, so I was quite surprised he was asked again, but he was, do you have any sympathy or at least empathy for managers like Amorim who are now going through what you've been going through in recent months? And he said, well, if I check my office, I don't have any sympathy cards from other managers, so that hasn't happened. There's definitely a few. I could see Ruben there, players out of position, kids on the bench. Well, welcome to my world. But that's for 1 game. Now do that for 2 months. Do that for 2 months. Any club do that for 2 months. I thought Man United were good today, considering all of that. We had our days when we were good. We beat Liverpool in this spell, but do that for 2 months. Some people kind of took that as this really him being I don't know, just having his back up. And it wasn't. It was all done with a smile. He was just saying, that's fine. That's and fair play to United. They did well today, but could they do that with 2 months of this situation? He's absolutely right. There's this kind of weird need to knock down Postecoglou when he's saying that, to kind of belittle him for using it as some kind of excuse. It's not an excuse, it's a reason. It's an absolute reason. We've gone over this so many times. Could Spurs have still done better at points during that spell? Absolutely. Could some of the decisions he made have contributed to defeats? Absolutely. But can you just ignore the fact that they've had double figures of players out in every game and how that has a knock-on effect in the system and the way they play and the tiredness of the players? No, you can't ignore that. You can't just fob it off as an excuse. I know where he's coming from. I absolutely understand where he's coming from. This game, not a classic, not one that we'll say was the Battle of the Goliaths. It was more a battle of 2 out-of-form, slumbering sides, let's put it that way. Spurs won. We're now up to the heady heights of 12th spot. Check yourself for nosebleed. And United are the ones now in 15th in the doldrums. 12th place. There's still a gap above. I think the Spurs are going to have to go on a real run now, which they'll be hoping they can do with players and freshness and the system able to be enacted and switched on properly. But here's my stat. That first team to beat United 3 times in one season since Chelsea did in 2012-13. I got it right anyway. But you could just see for Spurs, regardless of kind of the quality not being the highest, just what having 7 days between matches for the first time, or one of the rare times in about 2.5 months, did for them. 2 days off, no midweek fixture, half the outfield players able to be taken off in the second half for a change. It just meant this far fresher version of Tottenham Hotspur. They were able to press, like I said, from the start. 55.7% of possession, 521 passes to United's 412. They took 22 shots, Spurs, with 7 on target. United had 16 shots and 6 on target. Spurs had another 9 efforts blocked. Spurs also had 44 touches inside the United box. They had 135 successful final third passes to United's 101. United's attacks mostly involved getting the ball to Bruno Fernandes on the right side and him pinging in crosses into the box. It almost worked, to be fair. Xerxes should have done much better with a free header, but that kind of seemed their main go-to move. Ultimately, regardless of chances for both sides, both keepers had to make a few saves. It was all down to one goal, and it came from the returning James Maddison. Bentancur, fun enough, also a midfielder getting down the right flank, got to the side, got a cross in. Sonny hit a really nice volley actually back across the 6-yard box. It deflects out to Lucas Bergvall. He did well to kind of turn and hit a shot that gave Onana a problem. He pushed it out to the side, and there was Maddison reacting the quickest to fire it back past him. We got the celebration, which was kind of doing the chatterbox sign to the camera. Then his dart celebration. Then a shush, putting the fingers up to the lips. And it was all obviously a response to Roy Keane, who in the week, I think it was on the Overlap podcast, had suggested that of the players that the Spurs players might not be that buoyed to see back in the dressing room, maybe Maddison was one, and he's like not consistent enough, doing it in big games, things like that. I think it was all along those lines. And here he was popping up in a big game, certainly in the circumstances, and scoring what ended up being a match-winning goal. And he was asked about it afterwards, and you could see he was enjoying himself in his post-match interviews. He said, just a little bit of outside noise wasn't there this week. Listen, people have their opinions, but I wanted to do my talking on the pitch today, so I hope there's a certain few that enjoyed me being the match winner today. No one is more critical of myself than me. To be fair to the gaffer, he always talks about blocking out the outside noise, but sometimes it's difficult. It's constantly in your face. You can use it, but I think the gaffer prefers when we're in our own little bubble and listening to him. He's like that. He doesn't even like them getting kind of sidetracked on the pitch with stuff. Maddison went on. Sometimes it's difficult because it's constantly in your face these days with social media and WhatsApp, people sending stuff, and you do see it, it's there, especially when it's a big profile name. Listen, it's about responding in the right way, and I did that today, and like I said, I was a match winner, so I'm really delighted. I guess the key for him now is consistency. It's continuing to do this in the weeks ahead, and getting Spurs back up the table. There's another big game, just even away. Ipswich is a huge game, as it is against Man City at home, and then you've got the week after that and the Europa League round of 16 first leg. So we need to see Maddison kind of doing this consistently. He has been racking up goals. He's Spurs' top goal scorer this season, so he's in a good place in terms of a kind of an end product. It's just about kind of not then drifting out of other matches. So, but he's good. He's got the talent to do it. This was a really kind of bright return. I think he gave the Spurs players a real kind of release of pressure in terms of how are we going to break down this team? What are we going to do? Because United do sit back and they're kind of more compact at the moment. That's the style that Amram's gotten playing. And I think for Maddison, he's got that ability to unlock a tight defence with a little pass, with something clever, with a bit of a dribble, he can break a line with a twisting and turning away from someone that's kind of right behind his back. And he played one lovely ball to Sonny, which set up a chance. I think it was a chance for Tell, actually, that was saved by Onana. And he just kind of, I think he released that pressure for them. They know they can give it to him and he'll try something, and something a little bit different will happen. But he fought as well. There was one really good chasing back sliding tackle that he did that almost got a bigger cheer from the crowd as his goal did. It was good. And Postecoglou was asked about the celebration as well afterwards in his performance, and he said everybody has mentioned this celebration, but I didn't see it, so I can't comment on it. But it doesn't surprise me that Madders didn't accept what was being said about him and threw a shot back over the bow. It's great to have him back. He's a quality player. If you look at his goals return from midfield this year, it's still right up there. He got frustrated when he got injured, and to be honest, we didn't think he would be back for a couple of weeks. But he's worked awfully hard in training and done everything right to make sure he was available. I think that is the key thing for us, and we've seen it with our players, with all our players, particularly in recent times. The injured lads are all desperate to contribute. They've seen what the other guys have gone through and are just pushing hard. Even Brennan, Wilson, Destiny, they were really keen to be involved today. Destiny Doggy, that was the other one as well. So actually it was 6 players back in training in all, wasn't it? I forgot about Destiny. Yeah, Destiny didn't kind of need to come on. Totally forgot. It got loads back all in one kind of clump. Brennan, Wilson, Destiny, they were really keen to be involved today. There was no me holding them back. They wanted to be a part of it. So yeah, I'm pleased. I thought Madders took his goal well and contributed to us getting the victory. So he got about an hour under his belt, just over Maddison, which is brilliant for him, and hopefully no ill effects from the game. And yeah, just continue to do what he does. I would say probably of the 2 returning starters, Vicario probably, I know it sounds weird because Maddison was the match winner, but I actually think Vicario probably had an even bigger impact overall on the team and the game itself. And look, Antonin Kinski's done really well, I think, on the whole. Promising start to Premier League life. He's only 21. He's been thrown into this rubbish situation at Spurs, new to this level of football. But other than the odd sticky moment, he's shown a lot of promise. And I think he's going to be a terrific goalkeeper for Spurs. Spurs got such strength suddenly in the goalkeeper position. It's all changed. But Postecoglou and Spurs have missed Vicario. It often goes under the radar, I think, how good the 28-year-old is as a shot stopper, an organiser, and a really noisy leader at the back. When Son went off late in the game, the armband was passed to Vicario. He was the next in line. He is one of their kind of leadership group. And Lloris, back in the day, was for a long time was a goalkeeper captain, and he did speak more than people gave him credit for. We saw that during COVID when there were no fans there. We could actually hear what he was shouting. But it was nothing compared to what Vicario does. Vicario is a constant noise machine, whether he's shouting, praising, telling someone off, roaring with delight. He's just a constant kind of, just ball of noise and activity. And one of those roars came at the final whistle. You might have seen it. Spurs have tweeted it out. He just turns, as soon as the whistle goes, turns to the North Stand and bellows this roar at them. And he's like pumping his fist, and his neck, the veins in his neck are absolutely bulging out. He's so happy. And I think the win and the clean sheet meant so much to him because, it's been a long time coming for him. He's been out of the team. And he went around after the final whistle really kind of having these little heartfelt chats with various people. One was Lucas Bergvall. He kind of grabbed him by the face, just kind of saying something very praiseworthy. Bergvall certainly was smiling about it as well. Bergvall I thought was really good, especially first half. He was really calm under pressure, kept skipping past Casemiro like he wasn't there. And yeah, Vicario kind of really was quite passionate in the way he was talking to him. It was a little bit like Bentancur did a couple of weeks back. And at the other end of the age spectrum, Bergvall is 19 now, of course, but Ben Davies, 31-year-old, Vicario's going over to him and having a real kind of moment with him, and he grabbed him and spoke to him. And Kulusevski was a nice interview with him in the mix zone after the game, where it was really. Sorry, just people sending me messages. I just want to check. No, nothing major. That's fine. But yeah, it's sorry, you've got to do that. You still got to do that with Spurs. Even out of a transfer window, if something comes in, it might be like, ooh, it's normally probably an injury nowadays. You're looking at and worrying. But yeah, Kulusevski said after the game in an interview that he just loves Vicario. He loves his professionalism, his desire to win, and everything like that. And that's he's an incredible character. I've been very fortunate enough to interview him a few times. One-to-one interview as well out in Melbourne in that crazy post-season match. And yeah, he's got a real presence about him. You talk to him, he's very he just looks you straight in the eye. He's very determined. I think a lot of it comes from his career. You know, he's had to fight and battle his way back up through the levels. And yeah, I was delighted for him to come back, a month or so ahead of schedule, I think it was as well. And he spoke before the game about, at the start having screws, metal screws in his ankle and having it heal and come back, and then having the weeks in training where he was just making sure he was all right, and now he's back and he was good. He made a string of important saves as well. Poor Garnacho. Garnacho's like probably having nightmares about him last night because he made a couple of flying stops from him. He's got his brilliant ability, Vicario, to get up so quickly after a save. So he's there ready for a double save. I think we spoke about it right back when he first joined, that was something that you could tell about highlights and video packages of him, and also people would say in Italy about the way he plays. Just incredible bounce back ability, if we're going to bring back that old word in a completely different way. And I thought he did well with set pieces as well. There are a few times they really tried to box him in, United, but I actually thought he did well. He punched a couple away. You could hear him organising the defence, and again, clean sheet. He's come back in. He's technically got back-to-back clean sheets. When he got injured, his ankle got fractured against Man City, 4-0 win. Spurs were 6th. And yeah, for him, it's a big thing to come back and straight away get another clean sheet against another Manchester side as well. And he'll be expecting to climb back up the table now as well. And actually, when you think about it, he had a couple of new faces ahead of him as well. And even in the defence, he had Kevin Danso, who I really like. Kevin Danso. I think he's such a brilliant addition. I think he could end up being one of the unexpected but best signings of the transfer window. As in terms of across the Premier League, I think he's been that good. It's very early days, and it's mad that was his Premier League debut. Feels like he's played a million games already, because he's played in both the cup games. But I just think he's been incredibly consistent in the way he plays, and he's another experienced head, another strong personality. I was reading, I think it was in the programme interview ahead of the game, where apparently he often, you can hear him singing as he goes around, and he sings to people. He just got this kind of confidence about himself, and it just looks to kind of make people's day better, I think is about it. It seems a very genuinely good guy. He's called himself a gladiator and a warrior in this interview, the big hour-long podcast he did with Rising Ballers, which I listened to. And he's got that. He's a battler, but with the pace to back it up. And I really like the way he uses the ball. He's very confident on it. They give him it in tight spaces. He tries the old Alderweireld crossfield pinged passes at times as well. I mean, just 20 minutes in to, again, like I said, was his Premier League debut. Garnacho's in a great position in the box. That position, unfortunately, we've seen too many times, that gets him behind the fullback. Porro, obviously, often the right-sided fullback. But out of nowhere, Danso flies across and makes this sliding challenge that, although he doesn't connect with the ball, forces Garnacho to kind of lift his shot. He lifts it over the bar. It was a huge moment. One of those where doesn't count as interception, doesn't count as a tackle, but actually was a key kind of maybe even goal-saving moment. Vicario certainly knew that. He went over and gave Danso a big kiss on his head as he kind of sat there on the floor. And he actually made another really good and actual sliding challenge on Højlund with 20 minutes left as well. That was key. And he was limping a lot in the second half, you could see. Battled on until about the 78th minute, I think it was. And then Postecoglou took him off for Archie Gray, who himself was getting his own rest. I mean, Archie Gray's played almost every minute of the last 2.5 months. It's mad. He started all but one of those games as well, Archie Gray. Postecoglou was asked about Danso and whether he was okay. He said he got a knock on his knee. Him, Sonny and Rodri all got sort of knocks. I don't think it's anything significant, but the beauty of it now is we can actually get them to recover instead of trying to patch them up and throw them out again in midweek. I think from what I've heard, knocks for all three of them, but they should be fine. Some people took that really in completely the other direction, as if he was delighted, Postecoglou, at the fact they're not in any competitions. Couldn't be further from the truth. I think he was just saying the one beauty or the byproduct of not having a midweek game this week is that you can do that. Is that they can put him back in recover them rather than putting them back in. yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes people are just looking for something to be angry about. But also, Danso's new for Vicario. So in a way, if you squint, is Djed Spence, because Djed Spence had not started a single match for Tottenham when Vicario last played. It's mad that in that short space of time, 2 months, January, February, 2 months or so, Djed Spence has become pretty much an undroppable. He's been that good. So he's got this new kind of left back to his side as well, and he was terrific. He started every Premier League game he's been fit for since mid-December, Djed. And every time he was on the ball last night, he terrified United. They didn't know what to do. He kind of epitomises everything Postecoglou wants his players to do. He's always looking to progress the ball forward quickly, whether it's passing, whether it's dribbling, whatever it is. Like I said, similar to Bergvall earlier on, I said about him and Casemiro, Djed, every time he had the ball, was trying to break the lines because he knows the thing to kill a compact system is to take 2 players out of it. If you can take 2 players out of a situation, another one has to come over and cover. And it's just such a key thing. But his all-round game was really good. He won 7 of his ground duels, Djed Spence, 3 successful dribbles, 4 ball recoveries, 2 blocks, 1 clearance, and man of the match again. And I know this is my theory, I could be completely wrong, but I wonder whether being a right back playing on the left actually helps him within the Postecoglou system, because we know the Postecoglou system on the whole wants the fullbacks to be inverted. And if he's playing as a left back, he's naturally inclined to come in field onto his right. So it kind of works with him in that. And I think it does cause absolute nightmares for the opposition, because they suddenly have this guy who's got pace, who's got dribbling ability, flying through the middle of the pitch when they were expecting him to be out on the wing, as a kind of a more standard fullback. It'll be interesting to see when he gets his chance on the right, and he will get his chance on the right at some point, whether he still can invert as it effectively, or whether he ends up staying a bit wider as a more natural fullback. But yeah, whatever. He needs to be playing as much as possible right now. And if he keeps going down this route, he might start to be spoken about in England circles, maybe on the left, because they are having some issues on the left. I spoke to one reporter after the game who covers England all the time. That's one of their kind of main job with their normal kind of club reporting. And they kind of, when I first mentioned Spence might again end up getting in the conversation for England, there was not quite a scoff, but all right, calm down kind of thing. And you could see the more they thought about it, it was a bit like, do you know what? Actually, on the left, if he keeps going how he's going, you never know. And I genuinely think, what is the next one? In about a month's time, maybe something like that. It could genuinely, end up that he gets, maybe not in this squad, but certainly kind of comes close or is spoken about. Or I was going to say Southgate, Thomas Tuchel, maybe talks about him. Gives him a little bit of a kind of sometimes that's what they do, don't they? England managers or national managers, is that they'll say, they weren't in this squad, but I'm keeping an eye. And if they know that, it kind of pushes them on even more. But I thought he was terrific. And he is going to have to still be managed his time, because the midweek games are coming back. The Man City one next week. And I know there's going to be uproar the first time he's left out of the starting lineup, Spence. But it might well be that Ipswich is the one to do it. He might look at it, Postecoglou, and think, okay, maybe I give Udogie the start against Ipswich, and then Spence comes in to play against Man City as the left back, because Udogie is clearly not going to be able to play 2 games within the space of 4 days, because they're playing on the Saturday, Spurs. A rare occasion when Spurs actually get an extra day recovery than their opponents. We'll see. There will be a huge uproar, but the other side of it is, yes, Spence will be fresher in terms of overall stamina, because he didn't play so much in the first half of the season, but there's also another side to that he hasn't played a lot of football, and then suddenly his body has had to take on a lot of football in the last 2 months or so. So sometimes they just need a little rest. He did get little bits with the Europa League games, of course, but he's not going to play every game when there's midweek games. And I guess it's down to fans tempering their expectation for game time, I suppose, as well, when it comes to those. Another new face of Vicario who had not played when he last played for Spurs, Matisse Tell. Again, another one making his Premier League debut, 19-year-old. I thought he was a pretty busy presence. He was constantly kind of giving the United backline something to think about. He doesn't have the physical presence or the strength at this point that a Solanke or a Richarlison has. He will. Like I say, he's only 19. He's got this kind of big gangly frame, and I think when he adds more and more strength to that frame, he could play that role quite well. But what he does have, while he might not be great with his back to the defence right now, he does have the energy and a really lovely technique that they can kind of ping the ball down the channels for him, and he can run and hold on to it and do well with it. He put in a lot of effort. At the final whistle, he kind of collapsed on the floor. He played the full game, and when he stood up, Maddison kind of came over to him. It looked like he was kind of consoling him. I wonder if it's because he had 7 shots in the game and wasn't able to score. Maybe as a teenager, he's thinking, I could have done more. But I just think the fact that he was getting those positions is a good thing early on. And the players are getting to know his movement as well, and his runs, and that will come. You know, with players as clever as Kulusevski, Maddison, Sonny with his ability to pick out a pass, Johnson who can get down the right and pull a ball across as well for those coming into the box, he'll get more and more chances. And yeah, with Solanke and Richarlison out, this is kind of a great chance for him to really rack up the game time. He did force Onana into a couple of good saves as well. It was somewhat ironic, wasn't it, that he was winning with a team against who signed him against a team that also wanted to sign him, and there were some suggestions, reports that United maybe was his favourite destination, but it didn't happen. So yeah, I think he's settled in really well. He seems quite popular. Seems again another quite strong character. I saw on his Instagram he was putting up all the photos. Maddison and Archie Gray stole his phone and were taking all photos of themselves with it as well. And that's a good thing. That's a nice thing. It shows he's part of the group already. I love that sort of stuff when they're instantly integrated into things. And yeah, I was thinking about this earlier. I was discussing this with my boss Lee, actually, that when all these players are back, and you've still got Richarlison, Solanke as well to come back, Van der Ven and Romero. So many players are going to be left out of the matchday squads. If you were to have a week where everyone was fit, I know that's rare at any club, let alone Tottenham Hotspur, but this is a good one for you in the comments. People in the comments, answer me this, okay? I want your Tottenham first 11 on as strongest possible as it is now, but I also want your bench. I'm fascinated to see who people leave off the bench, because it's very easy to say, I'd leave Werner off it, Reguilon, whatever. But look at that team last night and the bench, and then take another, 4 players still to come in. I feel like I'm missing someone else as well. But yeah, take another old Dane Scarlett, you could say, maybe comes off the bench as well. But yeah, who comes out? That bench will be incredibly strong. Suddenly a squad that's threadbare looks like a very decent squad. Yeah, we can talk about the quality in certain positions, but in terms of numbers, suddenly becomes a lot of players because of the 2 players they brought in 3 players they brought in the window in the end. But yeah, it's, I'm interested to see what people say, because I think there's going to be a lot of debate about that, and I think we're going to be having good arguments if they can start getting everyone back as the weeks go on about who's being left out. And so also those coming back, we had Johnson, we had Odebear came on the pitch as well. I thought Odebear was probably one of the brightest, little cameo. I thought Sarr was quite good when he came on as well. He brought a bit of energy. Gray replaced Danso. And yeah, I thought Odebear looked like a man trying to make up for lost time. Showed a nice touch, went on a couple of little dribbles as well. Really good for him. And obviously a friend of Tell from the international scene as well. When you've got them all fit, when you've got Richarlison, Solanke back as well, there's a lot of competition for those wing slots, because even for Sonny, it's going to keep Sonny on his toes, which is good. Every player needs competition, but you're going to have, Son, Tell, Johnson, Odebear, Werner, Moore, Kulusevski can play there, Richarlison can play there as well, and I've probably forgotten someone really obvious. I mention Johnson. I think there's a lot of players there that can all be challenging, playing on the left or the right as well. They're quite versatile wingers too. So it was good to see Odegaard though. He's played 275 minutes since he joined from Burnley. He was a teenager when he signed for Spurs. He is now not. He was a teenager the last time he played for Spurs. He is now not. And obviously had that hamstring injury. So it was great to see him back. It kind of felt like all the indications were it was going to be later in the season we'd see him. So if they can slowly build up his game time now and get him back into things, he's going to be a very useful weapon for the team. He really is. He's got that unpredictability, that je ne sais quoi, that little bit of just magic can happen in any moment. His end product is something that's going to have to improve, but certainly he's going to cause chaos for opposition defences, and that's a good thing for Spurs, and it's something Postecoglou will love as well. So the under-21s are playing and kind of keeping an eye on that as well at the same time. So Postecoglou said after the game, I certainly believe there's still a hell of a lot on offer for us this back half of the year. Europe is the obvious one, but even in the league, I think we can make inroads there. We're not happy with where we are. It's unacceptable that we're in the position we are, but the circumstances have dictated that to a great extent. The circumstances will change. The guys who came back in today will improve and make us stronger. There's still 2 or 3 more on the horizon who will also come back, and I think that gives us an opportunity before long. It's only one game, but I thought today was an important game if we're going to start that progress. Getting 3 points makes us think, okay, it's starting to make an impact. And that's the key. It was a first step. It was not a day that brought beauty or wonderful football or a stunning performance. It was just a game that it was a day that brought results, is probably the best way to put it. Tottenham and Postecoglou needed to win, and they did. I think thousands of fans who were marching towards the stadium needed to show Daniel Levy, who was at the game, by the way. There was a bit of social media mischief with these mad accounts that pretend to be other accounts, saying that he was abroad or America or something. He was there. I've seen all the photos from the game. He was up there in the director's box. But yeah, those fans were trying to show Daniel Levy exactly how unhappy they are. And they did exactly that. So that was a result in itself as well. They kind of achieved what they wanted to achieve and kind of gained a wider recognition for their disillusionment as well. And that's an interesting day at the Tottenham Hotspur in so many ways. Oh, there was another little positive thing I wanted to talk about. This is kind of former Tottenham, but I just thought it was really lovely. Sometimes football just throws up beautiful moments, and it did exactly that this weekend. Actually, it did it yesterday. You might remember him, Nabil Bentaleb, the former Spurs midfielder, who kind of spent in the academy for a little bit, and then under Pochettino started to really kind of come into the midfield for a season or two with Ryan Mason when Poch was trying to bring the young blood in. So if you're not aware, Bentaleb, who's 30 now, which makes me feel old that he's 30, last year he was hospitalised a little while after a World Cup qualifier for Algeria with an illness. And then it turned out he'd suffered a cardiac arrest. It was June the 18th last year. He was fitted with a defibrillator by the same heart specialist who worked on Christian Eriksen. And in the last 8 months, there's been doubts about whether he would ever play football again. Obviously, the initial thing is about, is his life and his and safety and all that sort of stuff. But then it became about, would he ever play football again? And he's worked so hard over the last 8 months. And then finally, last week, the French Football Federation cleared him to return to action. They had a kind of a medical commission convened, and they assessed his condition and decided, okay, with all the evidence we've got, he can play football again. So resumed full training, and then yesterday was the first time he was included in the matchday squad. He plays for Lille now, his hometown. It was the first time he was in a matchday squad since that World Cup qualifier in June 2024. The game, Lille are at Rennes. It's heading towards a bit of just a stalemate, a nothingy game. 15 minutes to go. Bruno Genesio, the Lille manager, puts on Bentaleb. 4 minutes later, corner comes into the box. I think it's a header. Keeper saves, goes out to a wide angle, and there's Bentaleb. and he strokes it from a tight angle into the net past the goalkeeper. What a moment. What an incredible moment. And it just sparked this kind of diagonal sprint across the pitch from Bentaleb, mobbed by teammates, mobbed by staff on the bench. And I think everyone just understood the kind of importance of this moment. To have come from having cardiac arrest 8 months ago to scoring on your return in the team, it's just incredible. Genesio said afterwards, it's worthy of a film. He deserved it, because I don't believe in luck. He believed in himself. It's an incredible, wonderful story. At the time, I didn't see who'd scored. It was only when I saw him running that I realised it was him. My staff got up. Nabil's goal put us on cloud 9. It's hard to describe. It could be a moment that will mark the end of our season, that will remain engraved in the history of the club of this season. And in Nabil's mind, of course. It's difficult to talk about it because it's quite improbable and incredible to imagine it could happen like that. It's a beautiful story. And his various teammates did interviews where they were saying the same thing as well. It's lovely. That's what the kind of the football, the beautiful moments of football we want to see. Stuff like that. I love that. He was at 5 years at Spurs, half a decade as well. And they actually won 2-0. Chuba Akpom scored a little while later as well, and but it was Bentaleb. It was Bentaleb who got the Man of the Match award at the end for his efforts, and I just thought it was lovely. So I just wanted, in case anyone wasn't aware of it, I wanted to share it with you because I saw it. Actually, it was early this morning. I didn't see it last night. It was just, it's amazing stuff like that. You know, Spurs unfortunately have kind of been touched by all of that a little bit too much, haven't they? Bentaleb, Eriksson, of course. Players that had left the club, and of course Fabrice Muamba, obviously quite famously at White Hart Lane, and it's just amazing to kind of see positive stuff from all of these guys, and kind of later down the line for them in different ways. But I thought I'd do a quick loan roundup as well before I head off, because Min-hyeok had a brilliant night on Friday night. A Valentine's Day to remember. He got his first goal involvement in English football, made his full debut. QPR won 4-0 in the Championship against Derby County. His goal's lovely. If you get a chance to watch it, his involvement in the goal's lovely. He touches the ball past his man with his really nice touch, and then kind of drills the ball across. And Elias Chair, it was the third goal of the game in the 57th minute, and it was just really nice. There's other little moments I've seen highlights of, little twists and turns, and it's a very physical league, the Championship, and it's a great kind of school for him, a school of hard knocks, if we're going to go down the cliched route, and it will be huge for him, I think, this little half-season spell, and he'll come back in pre-season, I think, kind of just leagues ahead of where he was when he first arrived at Spurs. With no disrespect meant to the Korean League at all, the K-League, it's a very good competitive league, but stepping up to the physicality and pace of the Premier League, it needs that little in-between step, and I think this hopefully should prove to be the way for him. The QPR boss, Marty Cifuentes, said he did well. He gave us a lot of positive things. He showed great quality for the third goal with the assist for Illy, and he had good situations in 1v1s. We need to go step by step with him, because we know he comes from a different league, and these are his first few months in the UK, but he's been training at a good level, and I'm very happy with him. I looked, as I always try to do, at the local media, and they gave him an 8 out of 10. He said he had some tough moments early on when he was roughed up a little bit, but he got better and better and was always a threat. I think he got 63 minutes on the pitch in the end as well. So, yeah, huge for him. It's great. Who else we got? Alfie Devine, Luka Viskovic at Westerlo in Belgium. I think I said in the last video, unfortunately, Alfie Devine has picked up a hamstring injury. He's out 4 to 6 weeks from the injury itself, which was last weekend. Vuskovic did play. He got 90 minutes as they drew 1-1. Westerlo was Cercle Bruges. But yeah, just a shame that Alfie, unfortunately, his season was going really well, getting a real rhythm to it. He's going to miss this little spell of matches now. Vuskovic turns 18 next Monday, by the way. He'll be joining Spurs, obviously, in the summer. It'll be very interesting to see kind of how he comes in and what level he's at, because he's a very exciting prospect. Who else we got? Will Lancashire, West Brom. Will Lancashire got a lot of praise in his first couple of games and performances as well. He got a full debut On Saturday against Millwall, they drew 1-1 away, West Brom. He had a tough day. I think it's probably the fairest way to say it. It probably wasn't exactly what he would hoped. I looked at, again, local media, the Express and Star gave him a 6, said a full debut, not as memorable as the Tottenham team would have hoped. Good start to Leon Armstrong's chance, but little more to shout about for the striker. He worked hard. But hey, all part of the process. His first senior loan. And he's just got to build on what's been a really impressive kind of important season for him, and I'm sure he will. Again, it's just getting used to regular men's football week in, week out, which he hasn't been. Brian Hill, Girona are in a real stretch of poor form in the league. I think they've lost 6 of the past 10 matches. They're not having a good time right now. He played 78 minutes at the weekend as they lost 2-1 at home to Getafe. He's getting lots of minutes, 2,048 minutes to his name, 4 goals, 3 assists in 29 matches. But yeah, and also Champions League experience in there as well, or further Champions League experience. But it'd be interesting to see kind of how it all works out. And we would imagine that Brian Hill is leaving the club in the summer window, because it doesn't seem to be a future for Spurs at him. But you can't rule anything out, because we would have thought that with Djed Spence last summer, and look at him now. But yeah, I'm interested to see kind of what happens during the summer, where he ends up. Manor Solomon's playing tonight. As I'm recording this, I think he's playing and kicking off not too long. Leeds are playing against Sunderland in a big game. So we'll see how he does, but he's been playing very well. 6 goals and 7 assists in his 26 matches. 6 goal involvements in his last 6 games, actually. Alejo Velez is getting minutes for Espanyol from the bench. Not really starting games, but he's getting minutes, little tastes of action, which is all part of the process for him. 22 appearances for them, 4 goals, including a Copa del Rey hat-trick as well. He came on, I think it was the last 11 minutes of their 1-1 draw at at home against Athletic Bilbao at the weekend. Ashley Phillips is a near ever-present still for Stoke City. They got a much-needed 3-1 win at the weekend against Swansea. He's playing pretty much every minute for them. Did make a mistake at the weekend early on, but he kind of bounced back from that and then did well in the rest of the game. Jamie Donnelly, Josh Keeley for Orient. They've had that mad week, didn't they? That started with the Man City Cup game and everything that came with that. Donnelly got a bit of a rest at the weekend. He only played 22 minutes as they beat Lincoln City 3-0, because he'd played 76 minutes in midweek in a 3-0 win against Mansfield, having obviously played in the Man City Cup game as well. Josh Keeley got no such rest. He played every game. He got that clean sheet in midweek, which means 13 clean sheets in 20 20 League One matches for Josh Keeley, which is phenomenal. They've both had such a brilliant time at Orient. It's just, huge developmental strides for them both. Who else? We've got Alfie Dorrington. A little bit of frustration for him this week. He made his full debut earlier this month, but since then, he had 22 minutes from the bench in the Cup. They won against Dunfermline, and at the weekend he was an unused sub as Aberdeen beat Dundee. So not really what he wanted, but look, it's still senior experience for him, which he hadn't really had before. Obviously made his Premier League debut against Southampton this season for Spurs, and now it's just about getting more and more experience of senior football into his body. Matty Craig at Mansfield, he's still out with that back problem that he's got at the moment, so he hasn't been featuring. Otherwise, he would have had a reunion with Donnelly and Keeley in midweek. George Abbott, he does continue to play for Notts County, another 90 minutes for him. A rare defeat for them. They're flying at the moment, Notts County, but they lost 1-0 at Port Vale in League Two at the weekend. But yeah, he's getting loads of game time. 27 appearances, 4 goals, 4 assists, really going well for George Abbott. And then you got Luca Gunter. He's at Wealdstone on loan. Got his first win at the weekend for them. They beat Yeovil Town 2-1 away in the National League. Again, a bit like Dorrington, it's all about building up his experience of the men's senior game now. And for a goalkeeper, you just take any loan that comes, and this is a good one for him, really. So yeah, that's it. That's the loan roundup, I think. Unless I've missed anyone out that's obvious, I think that's everyone. So try to pack in as much as I could in there. We're almost at the hour mark. Some people ask for the marathon update and how I'm getting on. We've got 10 weeks to go. I think it's 27th of April. 10 weeks to go. I'm putting in the miles. My body is feeling it. In the last 8 days or so, I've done 2 17-mile runs, 2 10Ks that are kind of like recovery runs. My idea, some people have told me, why are you doing the longer runs so early? I think I'm supposed to be about 4 or 5 miles back than that. The reason is I'd pre-booked a holiday for my wife's birthday before I knew I was doing the marathon. And that comes at kind of a time when I should be doing the longer runs. I will try to get in some running on the holiday because I'm going to have to. But yeah, that's all kind of next month. So I'm kind of having to kind of front load my body in a way with the longer run so it knows it can do it. Yeah, it's really annoying. I could have done with a holiday in the tapering off period before the marathon, but it's not quite at that point. But yeah, if you want to keep an eye on me and what I'm doing, I am on Strava, the running app. I'm log everything on there because I kind of felt that all the people that have been donating, and they've been amazing, everyone has. We're up to almost 21,000. What are we up to? What's the current total? We are on £20,704 from 1,057 donators, which is incredible. And I just kind of wanted there to be a way that people could donate and check that I'm doing my part. So you can see on Strava, I think I'm up to something like 400 and something miles that I've put in. So I am doing it. I am. It's been incredibly hard to fit around Spurs and their mad schedule recently, but I've been doing it. And my body I'm a broken man, but we're getting there. We're still getting there. I will, as always, every other video, pop the donations link under the video if anyone still wants to donate. It's all going to Cancer Research UK, which obviously is a brilliant cause, and I'm blown away by how much we've raised so far. It's remarkable and it's amazing, and it massively puts the pressure on me to get over that finish line. And if I have to crawl across it, I will. So yeah, that's that. Ipswich up next on Saturday, which is going to be weird having a Saturday game in itself. I suppose we're going to get a bit of revenge. Obviously, Ipswich beat them at home. Apparently, Kieran McKenna was up behind us, not in the press box, but he was up in the base box that they have here because he and Postecoglou are both base clients. So he would have been keeping an eye on Spurs. Probably wouldn't have been blown away or duly worried too much by Spurs. But I think he will know that they'll be getting stronger and better with another full week of training under their belts as well, or 6 days of training under their belts this week. So, yeah, it'll happen. It'll, in terms of the team, will get better and better, and they've just got to go there and win. Yeah, Ipswich have given a lot of teams problems. They got the draw against Villa, didn't they, recently? But they have only won, I think it's 3 Premier League games. Spurs need to go there and make up for the home game. They need to show the quality. They've got the quality in the squad now back again, and they need to make it count. So Postecoglou press conference is probably going to be Friday. He likes the Friday ones. Back in the day, Poch used to do them Thursday for a Saturday one, but I think Postecoglou will probably stick to Friday. Plenty of things to ask him about. I noticed there was a suggestion on social media that maybe Christian Romero was in Qatar this week. I think we're going to have to wait and see what Postecoglou says about that. It'd be interesting to see if he is or not. I know Spurs have certainly sent players to Aspetar in Doha, which is like this kind of cutting-edge medical facility for athletes to go there and kind of do rehab and training and warm weather training just to get a different environment. Spurs will often do that for players just to change it up for them. And I think Deli's been there before. I've certainly seen maybe Cess went there. I'm trying to remember. Other players have been there before. And look, I'm not saying Romero's there. If it is true that he is in Qatar, I think a lot of it came from, was it a YouTuber mentioned that he'd seen him there? I can't remember. But if he is there, then maybe that's where he is. We'll see. Postecoglou will kind of explain whether that's true or not on Friday. And obviously any kind of further updates on Solanke, Richarlison, Van de Ven, and of course Romero as well. So yeah, we'll see. But there we are. What else? I did another movie video. If you haven't noticed, Gold Goes to the Movies. I'm enjoying that little channel. It's like a bit of a kind of a side hobby to all of this. This is all my life kind of revolves around Spurs, but everyone knows that I love movies as well. So I've been really enjoying doing those, and sometimes work gets in the way and I can't do them as much as I'd like to. But I did one the other day with a load in there, and I went to see Captain America Brave New World as well yesterday ahead of the game. I got to a morning showing. So I had a good double kind of my two life's things, apart from family, of course, movie and football. I got to do that. So, but yeah, please do hop across to the Goal Goes to the Movies if you haven't seen it. It's kind of just a slowly growing little channel, which I do have fun with. Spoiler-free movie reviews, and you can tell, as I do with the Spurs, I do enjoy myself talking about things I love. And so there we are. Right, well, that's it. That's this week at Spurs. If anything else happens, of course, I'll do a quicker video, but otherwise I'll be back on Sunday after the Ipswich game. Back on the road. Spurs, back-to-back Premier League wins, back-to-back clean sheets as well. We won't mention those. The cup defeats in the middle, I don't mention them. But back-to-back Premier League wins. It'd be lovely, I think, go on a run now and start putting together some consistency. That little period early in the season where they did that, and they need to get back to that, especially with players coming back into the squad. And let's see what the starting 11 holds. It could be a very different one against Ipswich with the Man City game in mind. So, let's see as we all squabble over who should be playing and who shouldn't. And a squabbling that will be a privilege that we haven't had in recent months. But there you go. So, a victory. Good stuff. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but a victory. And thank you also to the many people I've spoken to this week. I just seem to have had a week where, like I said, the chap and his son at Tesco's at the start I spoke about, but also various people on the walks to the stadium and on the train back yesterday. I had a kind of a group of one guy and his dad and his mate, and they're all lovely people, all very nice. I'm very fortunate that people that kind of watch these or read my stuff or listen to the podcast with Guesty Gold and Guest Talk Tottenham, they're all very nice people. I've been very fortunate, and it's very, very much appreciated because we know how some fans can be in life and how just people can be in life, and I could certainly have some very different experiences, but thus far haven't, and I feel very fortunate for that. So thank you very much, and please do. It's always nice, please do say hello. It's always very nice to talk to people and have a little chat when I'm around the game or out and about. And look, we all love Spurs. That's why we do it. And they can be a painful bunch, can't they? So it's nice to be able to share the pain and the joy together, isn't it? So on that note, time to head off. And as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. And I shall catch you later. Goodbye.